Have you ever witnessed a plea so heartfelt you simply couldn't look the other way? A little girl, a letter, and a heart that's been ice-cold for years. For him, it was just another frigid night, right up until the past knocked on his door with soft brown eyes and a trembling voice. Sure, this could have been just one more unlikely encounter. Yet what started as an innocent request snowballed into a journey none of them were ready for. If you're convinced true love never dies, just bides its time, waiting for the perfect moment to resurface, then this tale is talking straight to you. Watch till the end, smash that subscribe button, hit like, and share it with someone you love. Because sometimes a note that looks harmless at first glance can flip the course of 3 lives forever. So let's get started. The letter shook in Ethan's hands like a dry leaf in autumn, its ink blurred by a desperate child's tears. Mr. Carter, I know you don't know me, but my mommy is really sad. She cries every night when she thinks I'm asleep. Each childish word sliced through the cold air like a razor, packed with a pain he couldn't quite grasp. The name Claire Bennett danced in front of his eyes, stirring something long dormant in his chest. Why did that name feel like a half-forgotten melody, sweet and bitter all at once? 30 floors up, Claire Bennett scrubbed the last splash of coffee off the marble, her hands raw and red from harsh chemicals. It was 3 in the morning, and she still had 2 more buildings to clean before sunrise. Her back screamed as if she were lugging the whole world around, but the real weight was providing for Lily on her own. 6 years. 6 long years since she decided to raise her daughter with zero help. A janitor's paycheck barely covered the rent on their shoebox apartment, and Lily's medical bills piled up like mountains she'd never climb. Little Lily had been born premature, her lungs as fragile as butterfly wings. Every flare-up cost a fortune Claire didn't have, yet she always found a way. She'd pawned her few belongings, pulled 18-hour shifts, and somehow it still wasn't enough. Despair sprouted inside her like poison ivy, tightening its grip. How many nights had she stared at the ceiling, crunching and re-crunching numbers, begging God for a miracle that never came? Ethan reread the letter, his inner voice echoing the chunky crayon lines. Mommy told me you guys knew each other when you were young. She said you were nice and took care of her. His breath snagged in his throat, a knot cinching tighter. Hazy memories drifted in, sunlight glinting off brown hair, crystal laughter ringing across the college quad. No, it couldn't be that Claire. She'd vanished from his life like smoke in the wind. Truth is, Claire had never forgotten Ethan Carter. 15 years had crawled by since their abrupt, painful split, yet she still dreamed of his storm-gray eyes on the loneliest nights. He was her first love, her only real love, and her biggest heartbreak. The moment she found out she was pregnant, right after the breakup, she tried to reach him again and again. Calls went unanswered. Letters came back marked, "Return to sender." It was as if he'd wiped her off the map. Lily grew up on half-told fairy tales about the dad she'd never met. Claire framed Ethan as a storybook prince, scrubbing out the hurt and rejection she'd endured. The girl spun a child's fantasy of reuniting her parents, convinced a sincere request would fix everything. In her mind, if Daddy only knew they existed, he'd race in to rescue them. After all, in the movies she watched, love always wins. Their apartment mirrored their harsh reality: peeling paint, leaky pipes, a battered sofa that doubled as Claire's bed. Lily slept on the lone mattress, a flimsy second-hand thing Claire snagged on sale. When the busted heater coughed out, they'd huddle together for warmth, forging a fierce, desperate closeness. In those quiet hours, Claire whispered promises she wasn't sure she could keep. One day we'll have a lovely house, sweetheart. One day everything's gonna be okay. The letter held another gut punch. The doctor says Mommy's sick, but she doesn't want me to know. She coughs up blood sometimes she thinks I don't see. Ethan's world tilted, as if a trapdoor had opened beneath him. The words blurred, swamped by a surge of emotions he couldn't contain. If this Claire was truly the one from his past, if she was sick and alone, how could he just walk away? But what if it was a scam? What if someone was twisting his past against him? Then came the dagger straight to his heart. Please, Mr. Carter, marry my mommy. I promise I'll be a really good girl and never bother you. I just want her to smile again. Ethan squeezed his eyes shut, trying to block out the image of a tiny, vulnerable child begging for a miracle he wasn't sure he could grant. Fate had shoved that letter into his hands, but could he face the ghosts that had haunted him for so long? Somewhere deep inside his frozen heart, the answer waited, locked away, begging for enough courage to break free. Ethan Carter snapped awake every morning at 5 a.m. on the dot, Swiss watch precise. That rigid routine was his shield against the emotional train wreck he refused to face. Icy shower, black coffee, no sugar, no mercy. Then exactly 1 hour of punishing workouts. At 35, he'd built a financial empire on the rubble of his broken heart, turning pain into billions. Every business call was chess, every move 3 steps ahead. And his 20-bedroom mansion? A gilded palace that echoed with loneliness, doubling as his private prison. The bathroom mirror threw back the image the world envied but he barely recognized. Jet black hair, not a strand out of place. Steel gray eyes that once shimmered with hope, now cold as forged iron. Hands that used to tremble touching Claire's face now signed pink slips without blinking. A $3,000 Armani suit served as armor, the Italian silk tie cinching not just his neck, but his soul. Somewhere along the line he'd turned into the very thing he swore he'd never become, a younger, meaner version of his father. 15 years earlier, Ethan was just a broke college kid with wide-open dreams and a heart worn on his sleeve. He tackled business classes at the state university thanks to scholarships and part-time gigs. That's where he met Claire. Same major, humble roots, a smile bright enough to light up the stacks. Their meet cute. She dropped a teetering tower of textbooks in the library. He rushed in to help. Hearts did somersaults. Love at first faceplant. For 2 blissful years they were inseparable, building castles in the sky, promising forever. On weekends, Ethan waited tables to buy her tiny treats, roadside wildflowers, bargain chocolates she tucked away like treasures. Claire stitched his ripped jeans, cooked simple meals that tasted like heaven. Money was scarce. Dreams and real-deal love were not. They plotted graduation, a small wedding. Kids raised with all the affection they themselves had been denied. Then spring showed its claws. Richard Carter, Ethan's ruthless mogul dad, blew onto campus like a wrecking storm. "That girl will ruin your future," he hissed, voice sharp as shattered glass. "Choose her or the empire I built for you." No idle threat. Richard could nuke any path Ethan tried to forge outside his control, and they both knew it. The breakup felt like a slow-motion car crash. Ethan met Claire at their favorite cafe, hands trembling, eyes down. "I have to end this," he lied, throat burning. "I don't love you anymore." The words tasted like acid, but he swallowed them along with his pride. Claire sobbed, begged for an explanation, clutched his hands as if sheer will could stop him. But he walked out, ditching the woman he truly loved and the best version of himself. What followed was a ruthless climb to the top and a free fall into emotional emptiness. Ethan buried himself in work. 20-hour days left zero room for thoughts of Claire. He graduated with honors, took the reins of the Carter conglomerate, and blew it up into uncharted markets. Each deal was a hollow win, every extra million a fresh weight on his shoulders. He dated the anti-Claire, bottle blonde climbers who wanted his wallet, not his heart. Nothing thawed the ice. His mahogany desk showcased only charts and quarterly reports, no photos, no souvenirs of happier days. Employees feared him, rivals respected him. The media crowned him the nation's hottest young CEO. But inside, a dead heartbeat, buried in the same grave where he'd tossed memories of Claire. He'd built walls so high even he couldn't scale them anymore. Now those walls sprouted dangerous cracks. Lily's letter kept pulsing in his grip, Claire Bennett's name pounding like a painful mantra, waking feelings he'd sworn were stone-cold dead. Was fate tossing him a do-over, or twisting the knife on what he'd lost forever? Somewhere out there, a little girl waited, eyes full of hope he wasn't sure he carried anymore. Claire discovered Lily was gone at 4 a.m., dragging herself home after yet another all-night office cleaning marathon. The empty bed hit her like a punch to the gut, knocking the air clean out of her. She tore through their shoebox apartment, shrieking Lily's name, rifling every corner, every hide-and-seek nook. Hands shaking, mind spinning worst-case reels, she hunted for any clue. Then she spotted the note on the pillow, neat handwriting she'd taught with endless patience. "Mommy, I went to find Daddy so he can help us. Be back with good news, love you." The words blurred behind hot tears, each letter another stab to her shredded heart. How do you tell a 6-year-old the world isn't a fairy tale, that some princes morph into fire-breathing dragons? Claire collapsed onto the cold floor, clutching the note as if she could soak up a drop of her daughter's stubborn optimism. Meanwhile, inside Ethan's mansion, Lily shivered on an Italian leather couch that cost more than her mom's yearly rent. Big brown eyes roamed the lavish room, priceless art, gleaming furniture, a crystal chandelier like bottled starlight. From a distance, Ethan watched her, tangled in warring impulses. Part of him wanted to scoop her up and shield her. Another part yelled to send her away before his defenses crumbled. Her presence was a rock pitched into his placid lake, ripples reaching the darkest corners of his soul. James Morrison, Ethan's right-hand man and only friend, showed up at dawn to find his boss in a state he'd never witnessed. The guy who greenlit million-dollar deals without blinking was slumped in a chair, staring at a cup of cold coffee he'd ignored for 2 hours. "Ethan, you look like death warmed over," James said, adjusting his glasses. "What on earth happened?" The question hung in the air like heavy smoke. When Ethan laid out the night's events, James's brow furrowed, protective instincts kicking in. "Don't you think it's a little too convenient? A kid turning up with this story? Plenty of people would kill for a shot at blackmail." His words sowed poisonous seeds, doubts Ethan had tried to choke off. What if it was an elaborate con? What if someone had dug up Claire's name and was using it to shake him down? Claire spent the next hours in sheer agony, calling hospitals, police stations, cabbing across the frozen city. Her dwindling savings evaporated on fares that ferried her from one dead end to another. December's cold knifed through her bones, but nothing compared to the ice forming around her heart with every flat. "Sorry, ma'am, haven't seen a child matching that description." Exhaustion bled her dry, yet she pushed on, because stopping meant accepting the unacceptable. Stress and winter air kicked her coughing into overdrive. Blood speckled the tissues she clutched, cruel reminders her body was bailing when her daughter needed her most. Each fit felt like ground glass in her throat, but she swallowed the pain right along with the fear. Getting sick wasn't an option, not while Lily was out there in this unforgiving city. Back at the mansion, Lily slowly realized her quest wouldn't be the quick fix she'd imagined. The man who was supposed to be Dad looked more like a scary stranger, always hovering at a distance, eyes made of ice. She ate the breakfast the housekeeper set out, legs dangling from a chair way too tall. "Did I do something wrong, Grandma Martha?" she whispered to the older maid, who failed to mask her pity. The innocence in that question could stab straight through any soul still ticking. From the doorway, Ethan watched the little girl, fighting a brutal civil war inside. Every tilt of her head, every nervous lip bite echoed Claire. The same eyes, the same stubborn spark. It was as if the universe had sent him a living ghost, a flesh and blood reminder of everything he'd lost and willingly abandoned. With each passing minute, his barricades crumbled a bit more, leaving him raw and exposed in a way he hadn't felt in 15 long years. Help this channel grow. Hit subscribe, tap like, and share the story with someone who needs a little hope. Ethan couldn't take the gnawing doubts sprouting in his chest like poisonous weeds. At 7 a.m. sharp, he slipped into his most intimidating suit and drove to the office tower where Claire scrubbed floors for a living. His footsteps boomed across the marble lobby like war drums, each strike cranking up the tension surging through his veins. Determination masked his face, but underneath the polished veneer raged a full-blown hurricane of emotion. He needed answers. He needed to look into her eyes and find out if this janitor was really the Claire he'd loved with every ounce of his long-lost youth. Claire was on her knees in the 20th floor restroom, scrubbing tile in autopilot, while silent tears streamed down her exhausted face. A full night's search for Lily, with zero sleep, had turned her delicate features into a portrait of pure anguish. When footsteps approached, she didn't bother looking up. Execs usually treated her like wallpaper. Claire Bennett. The deep voice wrapped around her name and froze her blood. Slowly, afraid it might be a cruel mirage, She lifted her gaze. Time screeched to a halt. Claire no longer saw the dreamy college boy she'd adored, but a man hardened by success and bitterness. Ethan no longer faced the radiant girl from his memories, but a woman etched by years of survival. Recognition struck like twin bolts of lightning. "Ethan," she breathed, voice shattered by emotion. "Is it really you?" 15 years of bottled longing leaked into every word. "Where's my daughter?" he managed, tone colder than ice. Claire staggered upright, legs trembling. I don't know. She ran off last night. I've searched everywhere." The confession came out between stifled sobs, each syllable a dagger of maternal failure. Ethan felt a flash of concern, then smothered it with anger. How dare she use a child as leverage? "Your daughter," he shot back, sarcasm sharp enough to slap. "Funny how you claim her all by yourself. What about the father? Or is that part of your little act too?" The accusations pelted Claire like stones. Her eyes flared with hurt and fury. "An act? You think this is some game?" Her voice gathered strength, fueled by injustice. "You really believe I'd use my own child to, what, blackmail you?" She stepped closer, still shaky, yet somehow unbowed. "Lily wrote that letter without my knowledge. She overheard things she shouldn't have, spun fantasies about a father who—" Her voice cracked. Ethan's heart threatened to thaw, but he clenched it back to ice. "A father who what, Claire?" Finish the sentence. His tone was glacial, though something beneath it was already melting. "A father she never had," Claire forced out, every word torn from her soul like shards of glass. "I tried to find you when I learned I was pregnant. I called dozens of times, sent letters, showed up at your house. You ignored me, like I never existed." The accusation hung between them like toxic fog. Ethan felt the ground tilt. He'd never seen a single call or letter. His mind raced, piecing together a terrifying picture of his father's interference. The revelation slammed into him like a runaway train, crumbling his certainties. If Claire was telling the truth, if she really had reached out, "That's impossible," he muttered mostly to himself. "I never got anything." Claire's gaze mixed despair with rage. "Of course you didn't. Your father made sure of it, didn't he?" Richard Carter's name was salt in an open wound, and Ethan flinched instinctively. Silence settled, heavy with unspoken regrets. For the first time, Ethan truly looked at Claire. The calloused hands, simple but spotless clothes, the weary posture of someone carrying the world. She didn't look like a con artist. She looked exactly what she was, a desperate mother. "Lily, she's my daughter," he whispered, the last word splintering. Claire nodded, tears flowing freely. "She's got your eyes, Ethan. And that stubborn heart." For a heartbeat, the ruthless CEO vanished, revealing the young man who'd once sworn eternal love. Lily started melting the ice around Ethan's heart in ways he couldn't fathom. The morning after his showdown with Claire, he found the girl in the mansion's conservatory, chatting with the plants as if they were old pals. "They get lonely too," she explained, stroking a white rose. Ethan watched from the doorway, spellbound by the scene's purity, by memories of a childhood he'd long buried. When Lily noticed him, she didn't flinch. Her eyes lit up like twin stars. "Want to talk to the flowers too? Mom says they keep our secrets safe." He felt himself walking over, steps cautious on emotional thin ice. Kneeling beside her, designer suit brushing damp soil, he asked, "What do you tell them?" His voice sounded gentle, unfamiliar. Lily's smile flashed, and he saw Claire in it, bright and alive. Claire answered Ethan's call that afternoon, hope and dread tangling in her trembling. "Hello?" "Lily's here," he said bluntly, yet warmer than before. "She's safe. You can come get her." Claire crumpled to the apartment floor, relief crashing over her. Tears of gratitude soaked the handset. "Thank you. Thank you for taking care of her." Ethan sat silent, wrestling with words he no longer knew how to form. The reunion detonated Ethan's defenses. Claire sprinted through the marble halls, footsteps drumming like a runaway heartbeat. She scooped Lily up, kissing her hair, whispering, "You scared me half to death, sweetheart." Lily curled into her mom's arms like a wounded bird finding its nest. Ethan watched from a distance, a strange ache blooming in his chest. So that's what unconditional love looks like. As they talked, Claire painted brutal snapshots of her life. I dropped out when I found out I was pregnant, she murmured, eyes on the floor. Worked days at a shop, studied nights, until Lily came. I always dreamed of teaching, helping kids fall in love with books like I did. The lost dream hovered between them like a burnt bridge. Then Ethan spotted the necklace, a silver chain with a tiny heart. Ghosts rushed him. He'd bought it for their first anniversary after months bussing tables. "You still wear it," he whispered. Claire's fingers flew to the pendant, cheeks flushing. "Couldn't take it off. It's all I have left of us." The confession hung like incense smoke, thick with meanings neither could decode. Ethan felt his carefully laid walls collapsing, brick by brick. Sensing the tension, Lily chimed in. "Mom, you're crying again, but this time it's happy tears, right?" Their shared laughter, wet with emotion, was a sound Ethan hadn't made in years. For a fleeting moment, they were simply two people who'd once loved each other, reunited by the child born of that love. Claire spun stories of Lily's first words, first steps, feverish nights. Each tale was a window into years Ethan could never reclaim, every grin a memory he'd missed. "She asks about her dad," Claire admitted softly. "I never knew what to say. How do you explain what I barely understood myself?" Ethan swallowed hard. The weight of lost fatherhood settled on his shoulders like molten lead. When it was time to leave, Lily pulled a move no one saw coming. She wrapped her arms around Ethan's legs. "Thanks for looking after me," she said into the expensive fabric. "Hope you visit us. Mom makes the best oatmeal ever." Ethan froze. Then his hand drifted to her silky hair. Something inside him shattered for good, a barrier meant to protect him that now kept him from truly living. As Lily and Claire walked down the driveway, disappearing into the night, Ethan stood in the doorway, watching the 3 days later. Ethan stumbled across the documents that shattered what was left of his fragile hope. He was sorting through old files in his private safe when he opened a folder his father had tucked away before passing 2 years earlier. Inside were letters addressed to him, Claire's letters, ones that had never reached his hands. His fingers shook violently as he read the desperate words penned 15 years ago. "Ethan, please answer me. I'm pregnant and need to talk face to face. Our baby's on the way and I don't know how to do this alone." The faded ink looked as if it were weeping on the yellowed page, each line a fresh stab to his already splintered heart. But it was the last letter that finished him off. Claire's shaky handwriting read, "Today I saw you leaving that fancy restaurant with a blonde. You looked happy, happier than you ever looked with me. I get it. I won't bother you again. I'll raise our child alone, and they'll never know they had a father who rejected them before they were even born." Ethan vaguely recalled that dinner. Just a client meeting his father insisted he impress. To Claire, watching from a distance, it must have felt like the final betrayal. Proof he'd moved on without a backward glance. The discovery hit him like a bolt of lightning on a cloud-free day. His entire life had been built on a lie master-planned by Richard Carter. The old man had intercepted every call, every letter, every knock on the door, spinning a fake reality where Claire simply vanished. Rage exploded in Ethan's chest. He had to brace himself against the desk to stay upright. Everything, absolutely everything, could have been different. He could have been there for the pregnancy, the birth, the first steps, the first words. Yet with the fury came a toxic suspicion that sprouted like weeds in his already rattled mind. If Claire lied about trying to reach him, if she'd misread that business dinner, what else was she hiding? Years in cutthroat business had hardwired him for paranoia. Maybe she knew about his looming inheritance. Maybe this was all some elaborate play for cash. Doubts multiplied like viruses, poisoning every good memory he'd just reclaimed. James found Ethan the next morning, the office strewn with papers like wreckage after a storm. "Good grief, Ethan. Have you slept at all?" When Ethan laid out what he'd uncovered, James's expression turned grim. "It still doesn't prove her motives now. Honestly, it might mean she's desperate enough to use her own kid." His words were lit matches tossed onto Ethan's gasoline-soaked doubts. "Think about it. She shows up right when you're on top of the world. armed with a sob story about illness and poverty. Blind fury swallowed Ethan whole. He tore across town to Claire's building, knuckles white around the steering wheel. He found her in the same restroom where they'd reconnected, on her knees, scrubbing the tile. Brilliant performance, he sneered, voice sharp as shattered glass. The poor little me act worked like a charm, didn't it? Claire looked up, confusion and fear flashing in her eyes at the heat rolling off him. I found the letters, Claire. Every single one. He flung the brittle pages onto the wet floor, watching them scatter like dead leaves. Clever move. Pretend you tried to reach me, then roll in with a sick kid to tug at my heartstrings. How much do you want? Name your price. Each accusation pelted her like stones. She pushed herself upright, legs wobbling. Ethan, I don't understand. What letters? Her voice was a cracked whisper, but he heard only another lie. Cut the pathetic act, he roared, the bathroom walls bouncing his fury back at them. I've got proof. How you stalked me, twisted a simple dinner into rejection, built this whole sob story for blackmail. Claire picked up one of the soggy letters, recognizing her own words from a lifetime ago. Tears slipped down her cheeks as the truth sank in. He'd finally seen everything, and still he thought she was lying. You're fired, Ethan said, voice iced over. If I see you or your kid near me again, I'll call security. He turned on his heel and walked out, leaving Claire collapsed among wet papers and shattered dreams. The echo of his footsteps thudded like funeral drums, stealing whatever hope she had left. Pain stabbed her chest so hard she had to cling to the wall to stay conscious while her world crumbled. Again. Claire couldn't remember getting home that night. Her legs buckled, her breaths burned, and the metallic tang of blood lingered in her throat as a cruel reminder of everything falling apart. In the cracked bathroom mirror, she saw a woman she barely knew. Hollow eyes, chalk-white skin, hands raw from cleaner, and dried tears. She'd been rejected by the same man twice, once while pregnant and now with their child in her arms and the truth on the table. Next morning, fever blazing under her skin, Claire dragged herself out of bed. Work meant food, and Lily had to eat. She opened the fridge and found only a bottle of water and a Tupperware of stale rice. Despair loomed like a choking shadow. She grabbed the lone coin from her purse and shuffled out to buy bread, every step a battle against pain and bruised pride. Still, she pushed on. Lily couldn't understand why Mom cried so much or looked skinnier by the day. Clutching her patchwork teddy on the threadbare couch, she asked, Mommy, is the rich man coming back? Claire managed a half smile, coppery blood teasing the corner of her lips. No, honey, but Mommy'll keep you safe. Always. Jobless, exhausted, with nowhere to turn, Claire chose her only option. Ask for help. She trudged to the community clinic, knowing she couldn't pay for tests. Under harsh fluorescent lights, the doctor examined her, face tight. You need immediate rest, he warned. Your body's giving out. Keep this pace, and you've got months, not years. The sentence fell like cold fact, but to her it sounded like the end. Across town, Ethan stared at the ceiling, 3 nights running on 0 sleep. The ice-cold way he'd thrown Claire out haunted him more than he cared to admit. His hands still felt her warmth. His mind replayed the letters he'd hurled at her feet. He was starting to see he wasn't just dodging pain, he was dodging guilt, love, the last chance to fix something before it shattered for good. But rage still chained him. Rage at his father, at her, at himself. Rummaging through an old drawer, Ethan found a faded college photo. Claire cradling a stack of books, that shy smile lighting up her face. His stomach flipped. They looked so alive in that snapshot, so innocent. How had they landed here? How had pride steamrolled a love that pure? He needed the whole truth, no matter how much it hurt. Back in their dingy apartment, Lily, worried sick about her mom, wrote another letter. No address, no addressee, just hope. She folded the page, tucked it into her shoebox of treasures, and whispered, If heaven's listening, maybe somebody'll save us. A small gesture, but in that silent flat it was like striking a match in the dark. Claire saw it and had no strength to stop her. She wept quietly, for Lily's innocence, for their loneliness, for life slipping through her fingers. In the city's plush district, Ethan hunted down his father's old attorney. Combed files, grilled ex-employees. Truth surfaced like bones in the dirt. Richard Carter really had blocked calls, letters, even paid a guard to bar Claire from the condo. It was all true. Guilt settled on Ethan's chest like a slab of concrete. He had to act, because he owed it to Claire, to Lily, and to himself. Driven by urgency and remorse, Ethan raced to the public hospital where Claire lay. A former cleaning colleague had found her unconscious and called an ambulance. From the hallway window he saw her, pale oxygen tube in her nose, clutching one of Lily's drawings with a fragile hand. For the first time in years, Ethan dropped to his knees and sobbed. Sobbed like a man who finally understood. If he didn't move fast, he'd lose the only woman he'd ever loved. For the second time. Ethan stood frozen at the doorway of Claire's hospital room, as if crossing the threshold meant stepping into an abyss with no bridge. Every heartbeat hammered his ribs, each breath a punishment for taking so long to understand. Claire slept, her exhausted face pressed into a stark white pillow while the monitors ticked out her fragility in cold, impersonal numbers. It wrecked him. She wasn't just a woman from his past anymore, she was the one carrying alone everything he'd abandoned. Beside her bed sat a tiny kid's backpack. Ethan knew it instantly. Lily's. Inside, he found a sketchbook and tucked between crayon doodles letters addressed to Daddy. One read, "If Mommy goes to heaven, can I still call you Dad?" The question ripped Ethan's heart clean in two. No argument, no doubt, no wall could survive such innocence. He slid into the chair and wrapped Claire's cold hand in both of his, as if he could stop her from slipping away again. He never left that night. Curled in an unforgiving armchair, he jolted awake at every uptick of the monitor. At dawn, he grabbed cafeteria coffee and set it on the table. When Claire opened her eyes, she found him there. Tired, vulnerable, painfully human. "You didn't have to come," she rasped. "Yeah, I did," he whispered back. "And I should have come a long time ago." Guilt wasn't just his burden anymore. It was the thread stitching them together. Over the next days, Ethan refused to leave her side. He upgraded Claire to a private room, hired top specialists, and made sure she wanted for nothing. Her resistance crumbled, not because of money, but because of presence. For the first time, she felt someone was there for her, not to rescue her, but to steady her while she saved herself. Every quiet act of care was an unspoken apology. Every silence, space for her to breathe without fear. Lily delivered the game changer. Playing in the hospital garden, she tripped and skinned her knee. Ethan scooped her up and hurried inside. Through teary hiccups, she whispered, "I knew you'd come. 'Cause you're my hero now." Her words rang in Ethan's chest like a promise he'd die before breaking. In that moment, he finally knew who he wanted to be. One afternoon, while Claire dozed, the housekeeper Martha arrived with an old box she'd found among Richard Carter's effects. Inside, call logs, mail intercepts, invoices to private detectives, proof Richard had sabotaged every chance Ethan and Claire had to reunite. At the bottom lay a letter from Ethan's mother dated just days before her death. "If you ever find Claire again, don't lose her. I met her. I know she loved you more than life. Your father pushed her away because he feared losing control. Remember, true love is rarer than fortune, and you already have everything except that." Ethan's hands shook as he finished. Truth, bad choices, his family's cruelty, it was all there. But now he had something he'd never had before, a shot at fixing it. Next morning, he clasped Claire's hand, eyes locked on hers. "I know everything now. The intercepted calls, the letters, my father's games. I know you tried." Silent tears traced her cheeks. "I didn't want to hate you, Ethan. I just needed to understand why you never showed." He leaned closer. "I did show, just too late. But if you'll let me, I'm staying. Not as a billionaire, not out of guilt, just as someone who still loves you." Before she could answer, the doctor stepped in, charts in hand, face grave. "Claire, we need to talk. Your tests show something. We have to move fast." A heavy hush settled over the room. Ethan squeezed her hand, wordlessly promising, "I'm not going anywhere." The diagnosis hit hard: advanced lung infection, years of overwork and neglect, finally calling in their debt. High risk, but treatable if they acted now. Claire stared out the window at Lily batting a pink balloon around. "I can't leave yet," she whispered to no one in particular. "She still needs me." Ethan took over every detail: meds, nutrition, specialist schedules. But the real battle was emotional. Claire lived inside a shell of fear and mistrust, convinced one wrong step would bring the whole thing crashing down. One night, with IV drip ticking, she asked, "What if you're only here out of guilt?" He sat at the edge of the bed, gaze steady. "It's not guilt. It's love. The same love I pretended wasn't there, but never really lost." In that beeping, sterile room, they stripped away their armor. Ethan laid out the whole mess: hidden letters, his father's sabotage, an empire built on lies. Claire cried in silence, not from weakness but relief. "You know what hurt most?" she murmured. "Not losing you, thinking I was never worth looking for." He bent closer, eyes glistening. "You were always everything." Next day he brought Lily in, holding a scrunched-up bouquet she'd yanked from a sidewalk planter. "Mom, look what I got. You'll get better super quick now." Claire opened her arms, and Lily fit perfectly. Ethan watched from the corner, no longer a spectator but a participant, in, at last, the life he wanted. The following morning, Claire made a request. "Before treatment starts, I need to go home, just for a day." Ethan hesitated, worried, but agreed. Back in the tiny apartment, Claire walked room to room as if replaying her entire life. She paused at the cracked mirror, brushed the mended couch, touched Lily's crayon art on the wall. "This is where pain lived," she said softly. "But it's also where I learned to be strong." That afternoon, Ethan did the unthinkable. He sat on the floor with Lily, piecing together a jigsaw puzzle. No phone, no suit of armor, just him, the daughter he was getting to know, and borrowed time to make up. From the kitchen doorway, apron smudged with sauce, Claire watched with the easy smile he hadn't seen since college. This was what he wanted, and he finally knew what it would take to keep it. Not promises, presence. Later, while Claire napped, Ethan pulled a small box from his pocket, the ring he'd bought all those years ago. He'd never found the nerve to throw it away. Now, fingers trembling, he held it out as she woke. No grand speech, no luxury polish. "Claire, I don't know if you can forgive me, but if there's even a sliver of a chance, let me be the man you and Lily deserve." She stared at him for a long, quiet beat. Then, with a tired smile and eyes shining, she whispered, "I don't need a prince. I just need someone who stays." And Ethan stayed, through that night, the next, and every one after. But nothing was fully settled. Final test results were still coming, and Claire carried one more secret, something she hadn't found the courage to share yet. Something that could change everything. Drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching this story from. The days that followed were all about rebuilding, not just Claire's body, but the fragile bond Ethan was fighting to keep alive. Every sunrise he showed up with hot coffee, a slim book of poetry, or nothing but companionable silence. He didn't say he loved her, he showed it. He was there for the tiny things, tucking the blanket over her feet, squeezing her hand during tests, clowning around with Lily even when he was dead tired. It was like he was trying to cram 15 lost years into 15 acts of kindness a day. Claire, for her part, learned how to let herself be cared for. For the first time in forever, she didn't have to carry the whole world alone. At first it made her twitchy. Her reflex was to resist, to stay in control. But little by little she let love seep through the cracks in her pain. She accepted the sliced fruit, the shy smiles, the hugs that lingered. Without realizing it, she relearned how to trust. Not the Ethan of the past, but the man being reborn in front of her. Broken, yes, but present. Lily blossomed right along with them. Mom's dark circles faded. Papa Ethan's laugh popped up more and more, and the whole house felt lighter, like the air just before rain. "You two look pretty together," she announced one night with that kid-level wisdom that cut straight to what matters. Claire's grin said thank you. Ethan blinked away, the sting in his eyes. The little girl who'd arrived in the world through hardship was now teaching the grown-ups how to love with ease. Even with heavy treatment, Claire insisted on small outings. A stroll to the corner hand in hand with Lily and Ethan, ice cream on a park bench, old movies under a blanket, made-up bedtime stories. In the simplicity of everyday life, pain found somewhere to rest. It felt like life was finally letting them turn the page. No erasing the past, just writing a braver next chapter. Ethan started working from home. Shareholders whispered when he delegated deals and rewired priorities. What's gotten into him? Nobody knew what he'd finally learned. Success without purpose is just another shade of empty. For the first time, he wasn't running from himself. He faced his mistakes, stared down his shadows. And that growth ran deeper than any corporate win. One sunny Sunday, Claire walked Lily into school for the first time, with Ethan at her side. Lily marched into the yard between them, head high, beaming. "This is my dad," she told her friends like she was sharing buried treasure. Claire, eyes swimming, squeezed Ethan's hand. He answered with a steady, teary gaze that finally understood what it meant to belong. Yet Claire still carried a secret, cold as a stone in her chest. One test result she hadn't shared. That night, after Lily fell asleep, they sat on the couch, lamplight painting soft shadows. "Ethan, I need to tell you something," she began, but he kissed her forehead. "If it's hard, take your time. I'm not going anywhere." The promise was all in his eyes. Claire drew a deep breath. "The doctors say the infection hit my left lung harder than they thought. I'll get better, yes. But I might never be what I was." The words fell like a crystal glass. Delicate, irreversible. Ethan said nothing. He just pulled her to his chest, holding her against the sound of their shared fragility. "Then we'll build a new version of you, one who doesn't carry everything alone." Claire cried, not from fear, but relief. Hope didn't roll in like a thunderbolt. It sprouted like a brave little weed in concrete. Day by day, a bit more life, a bit more faith. Inside Claire grew the certainty that she was finally loved completely. Not for the strength she flashed to the world, but for the courage to show her cracks. But fate still held one last twist, a truth buried in the past that would reshape their future. The day was crystal clear, pale blue sky, gentle breeze, like nature itself was inhaling with them. Claire, hair in a simple bun, wore a floral dress Lily had picked. They gathered in a community school auditorium for a modest ceremony. To Ethan, it outshone any boardroom gala. Today, Claire was honored as the mom who'd changed every life around her, his included. When the applause rose and Lily handed her a single flower, Ethan stood with an envelope. "Before we wrap up, I have something to say." His sure voice hushed the room. "I spent 15 years trapped in a twisted truth. This woman, set me free. She gave me a daughter, a home, a lesson. Real love survives time, lies, absence, and still chooses to stay." Tears streaked Claire's cheeks as Ethan knelt, not with a ring box, but with that envelope. Inside were copies of every letter she'd written and never reached him. "The world never saw these, I have, and now everyone will." He handed the papers to the principal and to Lily, laying his truth bare. The crowd rose in a quiet ovation, and Claire, at last, felt her story heard and honored. Days later, on the porch at sunset, Claire cradled a mug of tea while Lily played with their new puppy. Ethan wrapped his arms around her, cheek against hers. "I'm still not sure you've fully forgiven me," he murmured. Claire turned, soft smile in place. "True love isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing to keep going, even while you remember." He closed his eyes, letting the words settle like a prayer. That night, Ethan showed her what he'd been hiding. Sketches of a home. Not a mansion, not a glass tower, but a warm house with wide windows, a sunflower yard, a kid's book library. "I want to build this with you, slow, brick by brick, like you built your courage." Tears rimmed Claire's eyes. "Promise the door stays open?" He nodded. "For you, and for all that's still ahead." They never expected Lily's bombshell later that week. Mid-dinner, after watching them trade their 1,000th smile, she set down her fork. "I've got one more secret," she said. "Remember my first letter? I mailed a copy, but I hid another in a library book. Silence. Last week, the librarian told me a man found it months before you showed up, Dad. Ethan stiffened. What? Claire's eyes went wide. Lily nodded, mischievous. She said he just stared at the letter forever, then checked out the book. He had sad eyes, like yours used to be. A chill traced Ethan's spine. Could something in that letter have nudged him, even before he knew? Sometimes destiny doesn't shout. It just whispers, and waits for you to listen. Time rolled on. Claire finished her degree and opened a tiny neighborhood library. Lily grew up wrapped in stories and laughter echoing through their cozy new house. And Ethan? He finally nailed down what success means. It's not trophies, applause, or extra zeros. It's ending the day with your daughter in your lap, the woman you love beside you, and knowing you're right where you belong. Not as a CEO, as a man, a dad, somebody who, against the odds, chose love. Have you ever lived a love like this? Tell us your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for more heart-tugging tales. Because sometimes one small gesture changes everything. And when love finds its way back, it's the most powerful force on earth.